A knee specialist. A one-trick pony, right? Not at the Christ Hospital Health Network. We have integrated specialists for every area of orthopedic surgery, like perfecting your golf swing again, night strolls with your partner, or walking your daughter down the aisle. Everything it takes to get your life back. We specialize in that too. The Christ Hospital Health Network, everything it takes.
The Pound This podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This podcast, episode 823, The Life-Changing Powers of Nature with Pam Cho.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What up, friends? Welcome to the Pound This podcast. Before I get into this absolutely amazing conversation with Pam Cho, I want to tell you about some amazing people in my life. One of them being Sarah in Team Fit With Me. Sarah is an incredible health coach. She does labs, whether you've got some autoimmune issues, which I do, which Sarah actually helped me figure out I have Hashimoto's disease through all of the labs and stuff that she runs. But then she knows how to help you eat and move through those sorts of things. If you have gut health issues, or you're just looking to lose weight, or you're looking to gain strength, or you just need somebody to be like, can you just teach me about nutrition and about exercise? Because you know what? It can be super hard and very confusing, especially if you're doing it on your own. So check out Sarah and Team Fit With Me. I know Jess is absolutely amazing. She is the macro goddess, can help you figure out all of your food. There's so many recipes that these ladies have. It's insane. And they're all absolutely delicious. Help you with some meal plans, help you work out with your meals, whether you have dietary restrictions or not. Again, whatever your goals are, Sarah wants to help you reach them. Also with your budget. So maybe you've checked into Sarah and Team Fit With Me before and you're like, this isn't within the budget. Because you know what? It can be a sticker shock, but then also you think about, this is my health. Like, I am investing in my health, but Sarah can work with you on your budget. She has changed some things on her end. So just contact her through Team Fit With Me, ask some questions and see if you can build out a plan and a budget that works for you so you can take control of your health. Now, if you're in the Cincinnati area and you're just like, I want convenience, I want delicious food, I want healthy options, definitely check out Clean Eats in Newport. They have been such a lifesaver for me. I mean, I started using them last year, and I was just in a bad mental space, and had no capacity left to meal prep for myself. And it was just such good timing where I'm like, oh, here's somebody who can meal prep for me. I have so much more variety than I was cooking for myself. It is definitely cost effective. All the food is freaking delicious. And I mean, you get to choose the meals. So it's like whether you're doing the fresh meals that you can order week to week. By the way, there is no subscriptions. There is no membership. You get as little or as much as you want and buy as much as you want to. I mean, it's all tailored exactly to you. Whether you're just like, hey, was out all weekend and I want to make sure I have healthy choices for Monday. You can hop in, eat at the cafe, grab some frozen grab and go meals, or do the fresh meals that you order ahead of time, which is what I do. I do the 21 meals. The macros, the calories are all listed right there. Or if you just like, I don't even care, I just want it to be convenient and taste good, then Clean Eats in Newport has got you covered. Go in there, check them out. Absolutely amazing. Speaking of absolutely amazing, I am so excited for you to listen to this conversation right now with Pam Cho. Here we go. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. I am so excited to meet and chat with my guest because I have heard so many amazing things about you from multiple people, including people at my job. They're like, you're talking to Pam Cho. She's the best. So I am very excited to introduce Pam Cho from Trek Executive Coaching. How are you?
I'm doing great. And thank you for that introduction. That's really nice to hear.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have a reputation behind you of people. I mean, I also hang out with a lot of people that are nature lovers. So they're like, oh, she does such amazing, cool things. I'm so excited to listen to this episode. I'm like, well, I'm so excited to chat with her and find out all the things.
Well, I've really been looking forward to this, Amanda, and I just think it's awesome that you and I both have this common denominator of the Cincinnati Nature Center. And by the way, congratulations on your new position there.
Thank
That's one
you.
of my favorite places in all of Cincinnati, and it's become my second home. So I'm really looking forward to talking with you about that.
Yeah, and I love that we both work out of there. So you do a
Right.
lot of your work out of the nature center, which I definitely want to get to. But I guess first off, just give me, a brief overview before we kind of get back into how you got here. But what is Trek Executive Coaching? Like, what is it that you do? And then how did you get to that point to doing what you do?
Well, I started Trek Executive Coaching 14 years ago, following 15 years working in the corporate world. So I was a vice president of corporate communications for Fruit of the Loom in Chicago and Cintas Corporation here in Cincinnati. And then in 2009, I decided to change careers. I went back to school. I went to Miami and got a certification in executive coaching. And I've been doing this work full time since 2009. Most of my work is one-on-one with mid to senior level executives. And then I also have a program called Trek Leadership Cafe, which is small group coaching for young professionals that I do in area coffee shops.
That is so cool. I mean, so I like that. I feel like at least working at the nature center and knowing outside of the people who are like biologists, everyone else is like, I worked in the corporate world. Now I want to be in nature. I mean, that's obviously your backstory. How often do you kind of run into that?
You know what? I'm running into it more and more, which is really interesting. And I think that, people are finding that there's just so much value and so much relief in being able to spend time outdoors. And I think the pandemic was when people got introduced or reintroduced to nature. And when I decided to start my coaching practice outdoors, I was fortunate to have the Cincinnati Nature Center nearby, and that is an organization that I have been going to since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I was in Girl Scouts, and I'd go out there with my mom, and I would plant daffodil bulbs that I'm sure I'm seeing bloom when I go out there now in the spring. So I've been going out there for a long time, and that's a really special place for me and for my family.
So when you talk about like executive coaching for like corporations, like what does that look like? Is that something where you come out and make everybody trust fall?
Well, there's been a trust fall here and there over the years. But typically, I am brought in by a company or a corporation that identifies high potentials that they bring me in to work one-on-one with managers, with executives, to accelerate their leadership development to get them ready for the next position.
Okay.
So we work on specific leadership competencies based on what role they're going into or what role they have recently gone into.
So how do you go from that, which sounds very kind of buttoned up business suit, I have my suitcase with me, to, hey, I want you to put on some boots and let's go outside. Like how did you decide to like marry those together and get them to work for people?
It has been a really interesting transition, both mentally and physically. So during when the pandemic hit, I was very fortunate in that I was able to turn 100% of my business over onto Zoom. And so I was sitting where I am today, talking with you in my guest bedroom, and that worked really well for about a year. And then one morning I was sitting out on my patio on my deck of my condo, where I start every morning, first thing, with a cup of coffee with my dog. And I realized that I was hitting a wall and that I felt empty and didn't have the energy, didn't have the focus that I needed. So I thought, I've got to find a different way to deliver my coaching. And 4 or 5 years ago, I participated in a program at the Cincinnati Nature Center called Forest Bathing. And it was a 2-hour guided walk on trails. And I remember at the end of that program driving home, and I felt this incredible sense of energy, of focus, of creativity, of hopefulness, to the point where I started wondering, is this really from the walk that I just took in the woods? So I went back the next month and I did it again. And I had the same thing happen to me. So I thought this really is happening in the outdoors. So I started looking into forest bathing, started doing my research, and I found that there was a certification offered by the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, ANFT. And it's a 6-month program that is a national program. It's actually now global. And I decided to go ahead and jump into this outdoor coaching with both feet. And I got my certification. And while I was earning my certification, I called one of my executive coaching clients and I said, I'm thinking about doing some outdoor coaching. Would you be willing to meet me outdoors for your next coaching session? We'll walk around a lake. She lived near Voice of America. And so I met her up there. We did the walk, the coaching session. She loved it. I loved it. And I knew that I was on to something then. So that's when I called the woman that works with me on my marketing campaigns. And she designed a new logo and I launched Trek Coaching Outdoors. So I haven't said this publicly on air to anybody. I've mentioned this to a handful of friends, but Amanda, I'm going to share this with you today and tell you that, I've been doing this for 14 years and I have loved this practice. I have loved this journey. And I have found this intense adoration of the outdoors and what it can do for us, both mentally and physically. And so at the end of this year, at the end of 23, I am going to be retiring Trek Executive Coaching, but I am going to be launching 100% outdoor coaching offerings starting in January of 2024 under the umbrella of Trek Coaching Outdoors.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's exciting you to spend more time outside.
That's exactly right.
So tell me then, you're saying that you're switching to all outdoor coaching. So for anybody listening, like, what does that mean? Like, who is this for? Like, is it for corporations? It's for groups? Is it for one person? Like, what is your buffet of offerings?
Yeah. So I have, right now I have a couple of offerings. I do one-on-one executive coaching packages. And if your listeners go to trekcoaching.com, those offerings are currently there now. So people can buy a package of one-on-one 60-minute sessions with me. I'm also doing groups. So if a company wants to do, say, a strategic planning session, we'll do it at the Cincinnati Nature Center. We'll do it at a park that's maybe closer to their office or their headquarters. And I will take them on a guided walk before the program or the work starts, help to facilitate that program. If they need a facilitator, we'll take a break at lunch, go outside, come back and finish up. And it's interesting, I did my first group outdoor coaching program with a Fortune probably 1,000 company here in Cincinnati. And it was out at the Cincinnati Nature Center. It was a strategic planning session, and we met out there at 9:00. We did a 30-minute walk through the woods on one of the trails and came back. And when we started, everybody said that they felt very grounded, focused, very present. They felt a greater sense of creativity being outside instead of being in a conference room or being on Zoom. And we were scheduled to go until 4:00 that afternoon to finish the strategic plan, but we got done at 2:30. And I really do attribute the fact that we were out in nature and people were able to get settled, people were able to get centered and focused and do the work in an even more creative way. So I'm really excited about offering something new and different to managers that have been working with their teams online that are looking for something different to do. To do a guided walk, and these are all customized. Even though I have a process that I use, but I think that people are ready to be outside. And it's interesting. Just one other quick thing about this is that 100% of the people that I have taken outdoors have said to me either I'd forgotten how much I love being outside, or I can't believe how good it feels to be outdoors.
Yeah. I mean,
So that's, yeah.
I will just say, being outdoors is life changing for me too, which is why I love it so much. I mean, for me, I lost over 100 pounds by walking outside of just
Wow.
like rekindling.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Well, I've
Yeah.
gained some of that back in the past year. It's been a year, but, but like, it was just that for me, I was trying to lose weight and I was trying to be healthier and like live this best version of me. And I'm like, I've had all these gym memberships and I don't go. I hate it there. But I'm like, but I like walking outside, even though I didn't really do that at the time. And I also say I was living in Denver, which is a very beautiful place.
Yes.
So I was like, well, I like listening to podcasts and I like to go for walks. And it just turned into walking around all the parks in Denver, which I knew like the back of my hand. But for a while, I was doing like 10 miles a day of just walking outside, and because I just loved it so much, and it just changes your mindset. And even now, which I'm so grateful to work at the Cincinnati Nature Center. This is going to sound like a big commercial for the Nature Center in so many ways, but it's like even now, just like, and it does it like where I'm working and I'm looking at a computer, I'm sitting at a desk, and it's like, I'm blocked here. I'm like, I can't stare at a screen anymore. So I just go outside and walk a trail. And it's like, again, like it just rejuvenates you in a way that you don't even realize it will. And even going through this move and everything I've been going through in my personal life, I'm like, I need to go for a little bit of a harder hike here. And it's like all this static in my brain just gets cleared out, and you just feel lighter, you feel clearer, you feel happier. There's just like more joy. And I just don't think that people give themselves the space to really kind of go out and reset like that. And I will say this about the Nature Center too. I know specifically so many women are afraid to go out in nature because it can be a scary place. And I even know like there's parks in the area that people are afraid to go to, but I will give Cincinnati Nature Center so much credit there of like, it's a safe place. It's a place where people like you can go out and exhale and be in nature because the trails are well maintained. There's a large staff. Like it's a place where you can just go out and truly tune into nature without having fear of like what else is going on in this place. And I need to be at a heightened state while I'm trying to be outside. So I feel like that also has to be a part of it too, of finding a nature safe space. So it doesn't feel like, oh, what animal's going to jump out of the woods? Is there going to be a coyote that's going to start chewing on my ankle if I go outside? I don't know how often you run into that with the crowd that, you're coaching is just kind of like, oh, I have a fear of being outside. But I know for a lot of women that want to get into like hiking or backpacking, I think that's a barrier for a lot of them is like, I'm scared of, I don't know what's going to happen when I'm out there.
And I totally get that, and I don't blame people, who weren't raised, as a child, spending time in the outdoors. So that can be a very legitimate fear. There's so many wonderful hiking groups, whether it's a nature center, the park districts, and I mean, great parks of Hamilton County, they have 22 different parks, and I'm just getting to learn that system. And there are some incredible parks around this city, which is the thing that I'm really excited about exploring. So, when we're outside, there's a natural occurrence that happens where by being outside in nature, it lowers our blood pressure, it lowers our pulse, and it lowers our cortisol levels, our stress hormone levels. And when we are able to quiet our minds and to find a space where we can just sit and think, that's where we make our best decisions. That's where we're most creative. And when I'm working with managers and executives on leadership development, one of the things that we talk about is the importance of being able to find a way to become grounded and centered so that they can find that place to make good decisions and to spend time outdoors to enhance their creativity. So that's part of good leadership, is putting yourself in a place and in a space that allows you to sit and to think and to quiet your monkey mind, your monkey brain, that I often call it.
Yeah. And I think it's also being present in nature and not being on your phone, like of
Yes.
just like actually being out there and sitting on a bench or sitting on a rock or walking through the stream or something, and just being like in that moment. I think, yeah, it just even, I feel like I didn't feel this for myself, and I love doing this stuff. Like it takes a few minutes for your brain to like calm down, like to even just get there, because we're always just like so like about everything. You just kind of got to breathe into it and allow yourself to just like slow down and be present, because we're so used to just constant stimulation that I feel like having a guide, like, you know, or having a coach there with you is super helpful to help get you in that space, so you're not just like start feeling antsy and start just going right to checking your phone again.
You are exactly right about that. And when I take groups, or when I take an individual out, I invite them to leave their phones locked up in the trunk of their car. When Before we go out, I'll ask, or I'll say, I have a backpack with a large Ziploc baggie. If anybody would like to drop their phone in my backpack, to give yourself the gift of 90 minutes of being unplugged, I'll be happy to take your phone and give it back to you at the end of the walk, because we don't get many opportunities. And so that's something that I really encourage people to do. And they're always amazed at the end of 90 minutes how much they enjoyed it, and how much, life still went on without their phone being turned on.
Right.
So, yeah.
So do you do forest bathing too, since that was so game changing for you? Is that something that you practice and take people out on their walks and do like a whole, like you've said, you've taken a couple forest bathing classes at the nature center. Have you taught of like a forest bathing class?
Yeah. So, yes, I do. And forest bathing is a practice that started in Japan in the 1980s, when medical care costs started to soar. And they found that it was from stress induced illnesses that were happening as workers were migrating from the outdoor type jobs to the city and working in high rises. So they started opening up parks for free that workers could go into for breaks before, during, and after work. And they started to realize that it was having a positive impact on people's physical and mental health when they were spending time outdoors. So scientists and researchers started going into that area and studying exactly what was happening to people. And they would take a person's blood pressure, their pulse, even do a cortisol swab. And they would measure that, and kind of based on what those readings were, they would say, Amanda, based on your numbers today, I'd like you to take path A out here in the park and spend a little time by the water. Or take path B, and that one has a bit of an incline. I want you to get your heart rate up. So it's actually used as therapy, both mental and physical therapy. So that practice, once it became an evidence-based or a science-based practice, it started to spread throughout Asia, across Europe, and it came to the States about 15 or 18 years ago. And there's even a program now in the US called Park RX, where physicians are partnering with park districts. The park districts give physicians guest passes to the parks. The patient comes in, talks to the physician. If they're suffering from anxiety or depression, the physician will say, well, Amanda, what do you enjoy doing outdoors? And you might say, I enjoy riding my bike. And he or she would say, well, how many times a week can you commit to riding your bike and for how long? And you say, I can do that 3 times a week for 30 minutes. So there's an actual paper prescription that the physician writes for you to ride your bike 30 minutes, 3 times a week. You come back for a follow-up appointment. If the bicycling's not working, then they prescribe medication. But they first try this outdoor therapy, and they're having amazing results. So much so that in Canada last year, forest bathing is now covered by health insurance.
Oh, how
And
cool.
they have a Park RX program there. So I am hearing some things that Cincinnati, I think, is about to get its first Park RX program here through one of the hospital systems. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. And have you have that experience with anybody that you've kind of taken out on a therapeutic level like that because they're going through some stuff and they need to be outside?
Absolutely. One of the first groups that I did was right in the middle of the pandemic when things were really tough. I donated a couple of programs out at Cincinnati Nature Center for some COVID nurses at Christ Hospital, and I took 2 different groups out there for a couple of hours. And you talk about a transformation of when they first pulled into the parking lot versus when they left after spending a couple of hours in nature. I mean, you could see it, you could feel it, you could hear the transition from so much stress, and they were carrying the weight of so much and so many, and to lighten that load for them, just at that point my practice almost felt like a ministry. As much as it did coaching, just helping people get through some really difficult times, both mentally as well as physically. So that's one of the things that brings me great joy, is watching that transition. Just one other quick example. I had a woman who owns a company here in Cincinnati call me, and she said, Pam, I would like to hire you for a guided walk. She said, I need to make a really big decision with my business, and I would like to go out in nature and have you guide me on a path to help me with this. And we went out for about an hour and a half, and I could just watch her body language to tell that she was coming to a decision, and it was one that she was happy with. And just by holding space for her, and like I said, being outside and having the infinity of possibilities above you when you look at the sky versus sitting in a conference room or sitting at home and looking at the ceiling, you get such better, more exciting, and more productive results.
Yeah. Well, and I think to be in that space and to be with someone who is there to understand what you're going through, like you said, like to hold space for you, to just kind of, I guess be there with the open arms with nature, I think is just so, again, like talking about that, like, like exhale, like letting everything go and just falling into being able to trust yourself because you're with a trusting environment with a trusting person.
You're exactly right. And these are all, confidential one-on-one sessions, confidential groups. And it's really interesting what happens when I invite a group to find a tree that speaks to them, and they can lean against it. They can sit at the bottom of it. They can put their hand on it. They can put their arms around it. But finding that tree, something that's literally rooted and grounded, I watch how much peace and how much relaxation just connecting with a tree can do for a person. So one of my favorite things when I'm out walking, I love to put my hand on the bark, the different types of bark on a tree. And I find that to be really grounding and really soothing.
And I'll tell you, like here I go. I'm going to sound a little crazy, I guess, but you can tell your vibes on this. I am definitely a tree hugger. Like, I mean, I love, and then it's like, it's so interesting for me of like which ones I'm drawn to. And I couldn't even tell you why, but there is a tree that I literally hugged this morning. I don't know why, there's a bunch of pretty trees on this trail, which I will tell you is on the butterfly trail going to the geology trail. And I know it's not the butterfly trail. It has a different name, but I don't remember what the other name is, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't know why. There's just one tree there. I just like, I vibe with that tree. And like every time I walk past it, I'm like, I give it a hug and I just like, I thank the tree. And I'm like, I'm sure if anybody walked by, they'd be like, what is this nutty chick doing? Oh no, she's got a name tag on. She works here. But I'm like, but I don't know but it feels like, I don't know, for me too, like already being in nature feels like so calming, but like having like feeling like drawn to a tree, which I really love, like evergreens, but this is actually a walnut tree. I'm cheating on the evergreen that like whenever I just kind of, I think it's just being present and just kind of like hugging on the tree. It just definitely feels like, I don't know, it is a very soothing, calming feeling that I can't even explain. It feels like you're just like getting a hug from a friend, which like, I don't know how to explain that any other way, but it's like I feel drawn to do it. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. And if I look crazy, like, well, whatever, I feel good doing it. So go ahead and judge.
I think that is a beautiful description that you said you feel like you're hugging a friend.
Yeah.
And, I mean, trees are living and breathing individuals. There are no two trees that are alike. And just putting our arms around something, that doesn't move, that's so solid that we know we can come back tomorrow and it's going to be there, is really grounding. It's really centering. So there's a lot of science behind that. And when we go out and, like you mentioned, the pine trees, one of the trees that gives off the greatest benefit to us physically is a white pine tree. All trees obviously give off oxygen. So when we're out there, that's where our energy comes from, that we find, is because we're breathing in all this wonderful, pure oxygen, which helps our energy levels. And there's what's called a fractal in nature, which are reoccurring patterns in nature. So it can be the veins on the back of a leaf. It can be a pine cone. It can be a reoccurring pattern in the bark of the tree. But when the fractals in our eyes meet a fractal in nature, it helps to quiet our minds. It helps to slow down our brains, and it helps to relieve stress. So that's going on. And then the other thing that's going on is that there's an essential oil that trees make called phytoncide. And that is an essential oil in trees that protects them from disease, from bacteria and mold and fungus. And when we walk through the woods, we're actually inhaling that same essential oil, which will increase and strengthen our immune systems. And there is a ton of research by universities here in the US that shows that. So I think that's a really exciting finding, and especially during the pandemic, I thought it was really valuable. But the white pine is the one that gives off the most of what I just described.
Well, do you know what's so funny is that I just bought this house. I just moved in this weekend, and one of the reasons I wanted it is a giant white pine in the backyard.
Oh,
and I got here and I'm like, I love this tree. Like, whatever about the house, I want to live with the tree. And so that's where I was like, and I'm sure my realtors are like, okay. But I'm like, I love it. It's just this giant white pine. And they bought me, as my congratulations on closing gift, they bought me a white pine, another one to plant. So it's so funny that you bring that up there, because then I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that at all. I just knew, I'm like, I like this tree. This is a cool tree.
Exactly right. And, and I would encourage you to find something that you can use to sit under that tree on a regular basis. There's something called a sit spot, which is encouraged in forest bathing. And that is a place that you find that speaks to you outdoors, under a tree, or in a certain outdoor area. And that's where you go just for your quiet time. Okay. So for me, my sit spot is out on my patio. I'm fortunate in that I can see the Ohio River from where I am. I can see the water, and I can listen to the birds. So that's a really quieting and healing space for me to go to. And speaking of birds and water, so I just have to mention a quick tip here. The sound of birds and the sound and the sight of moving water are two of the most healing sounds to the ear. So, the birds are the loudest in the morning. I like doing my sit spot at the beginning of the day. So just thought I would mention that as well.
Yeah, I just think it's so amazing that all of these, I feel like a lot of us, post COVID are hurting in a lot of ways, and we all have, like, we're all affected. So there's healing to do on various different levels, I feel like, for all humans, and how all of this is available to us. Like, all we have to do is go outside, and how, like, it's just so simple, but how many of us don't do it? You know what I mean? Of like, you could just go outside and listen to the birds, find some water, sit under a tree, hug a tree, go for a walk, and how life-changing and healing that can be. But also it almost feels like that's too simple. That can't be true.
Yeah. Well, there's an awful lot of science behind it. And the Washington Post just published an article talking about how all types of exercise, when it's done outdoors, there's an even greater benefit than doing it indoors. Whether you're on a treadmill or, even yoga, you get even more benefit when you take your exercise outdoors. So,
well, there is trail yoga at the Cincinnati Nature Center also. So
I've done it. And you talk about nirvana. Doing yoga outdoors is really cool.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. So there's a lot I haven't done forest bathing either. I just recently learned about forest bathing in the past few months or so. And I'm like super curious about it, but I have not been on like a forest bathing session. Like, I guess the understanding I had was to go out and to focus on one thing, of like, just listen for the birds or look for trees, or like focus on one thing to like catch your attention. Would you say that's an accurate description of kind of going out and guiding yourself on forest bathing?
Yeah, so you can absolutely do that. There is a quick read book called The Guide to Forest Bathing by Amos Clifford, Clifford, and he just put out the second edition of his book last fall. And he talks in there about how to do a self-guided forest bathing walk. When I take somebody out, there are 4 different things that we do. The first thing is I do a meditation called The Pleasures of Presence. Then I'll do a couple of invitations like the one that I just described, of find a tree that speaks to you. There's time for reflection. And then we come back and do a ceremonial tea. And the tea is usually brewed with something from that area. Like, I'll serve a white pine tea, and there's a sharing circle. So there is a bit of a format to it, but it's all customized depending on the space and the group that I'm with.
That's so cool. I'm just like so happy and excited that like you're bringing this to the world. Like, I just think that it's amazing that what you've done has brought you to this point, and now even moving into the next year, how you're going to focus on it even more. I just feel like it's so necessary for so many people, and the fact that, you're just kind of opened up to give this gift to everyone, I just think is amazing. So I'm really excited about your work, and I'm really happy that you're doing it. And I'm like just even double happy that you're doing it at the Nature Center. I'm like, man, you could be in California doing this, and I think that'd be amazing. But I'm like, oh man, you're doing it at my job. This is awesome.
I'm going to wave at you through your window next time I see you out there. So, yeah.
Yeah. But that's where I'm like, I'll have to book a one-on-one session with you sometime and just see it from completely different eyes. I think that's what's important too, is like, you could hit the same trail 100 times and it'd still be different. Yeah. Like, if I went out with you, I'm sure a trail that I've hiked multiple times would take on different meaning. And I would learn different things about nature and about myself just by going with you versus going by myself.
Well, we'll have to make that happen. I would love to take you out sometime.
For sure. So for everybody that's hearing all of this and they're like, wow, this is amazing, I got to get on this. Like, what's the best avenue to find you, to reach you, or to ask you any questions, all of the above?
Yeah, all of my contact information, and I have a resource page with a list of books and different podcasts and articles. If your listeners go to trekcoaching.com, that's where you'll find all of the information.
Awesome. Pam, thank you so much. This was amazing. I'm so glad that we have met.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate the opportunity.
AmandaValentineBites.com.